Hi, LA Progressive friends and readers. This is Dick and Sharon, publisher and editor of LA Progressive, back with you again, and again with our dear friend Peter Larman. How you doing, Peter?
Hi, Peter.
Hey, it's good to see you. We have to stop meeting like this.
I know.
So Peter's a retired minister who was formerly head of Progressive Christians Uniting in Los Angeles and is currently a member of the National Council of Elders and works on their King and Breaking Silence team. We worked together for some years on the Justice Not Jails program. And I must say that I delighted in going down to Reverend John Cager's office for a monthly discussion with Peter and John, Lynn Lyman from the Drug Policy Alliance and others. Uh, uh, we got some good work done. If the Heritage Foundation had given us a couple $1 million, we would have knocked the world on its rear. But those were some wonderful conversations. I loved them.
Well, I don't think we were the right kind of Christians to get funding from the Heritage
Well,
Foundation.
maybe
No, we certainly weren't.
maybe that was the issue. I don't know. So just a couple days ago, Peter submitted an article called "When Trump Screams Crime, We Know What He Means." Indeed. What does he mean?
Well, sure. I mean, the key for this was his complete fabrication of a crime crisis in the nation's capital and his deployment of troops and now more troops. And he said openly that he hopes to replicate this in Chicago, in Oakland, in Baltimore. And you look at all those cities, and they're led by Black people. So when he screams crime, he wants you to hear Black crime. That's what he wants you to hear. And he's very good at this. He's very good at the dog whistling. He's been, I rehearsed I think now pretty well-known history of himself, his father in real estate, and decade after decade, he's been spewing racist hatred, and these days he kind of makes no secret of it. They're dismantling even any reference almost to slavery in America's past. But this is dangerous because here we have what people have been talking about for a long time, but we have an actual police state in the nation's capital. And initially, the local leaders there said, "Well, we will cooperate in effect because we have to cooperate, and maybe some good can come out of it." And now I think it's pretty obvious to everybody, including Mayor Bowser, that this is a catastrophe and that it will spread. I mean, the campaign, he's gearing up for the midterms. His numbers aren't great. The cost of everything is too high. He does not want conversations about all those broken promises. What he does want is the dog whistle and make America white again, which is essentially the subtext all along.
So, Peter, one of the things, we make no bones about it. We are friends with you, full disclosure, close friends. And one of the things that I so appreciate about you is that you pull no punches. You call it like it is. And I really wish that more white progressives and people that call themselves liberals would have the same perspective that you have. I believe that Donald Trump is able to use these dog whistles and to take the position that he does regarding Black and brown people, because the nation historically has been pretty silent when it comes to the harms that come to Black, brown, and that includes Palestinians. Um, what do you think we could have possibly gone much further if we had a very strong coalition of white allies?
Yes, I was just listening on Boston Public Radio to a friend of mine, Reverend Eileen Monroe, who was talking about the burden that Black people are expected to carry for everybody and how wearying and and offensive it is for the white people to kind of drift along and assume that black people will somehow pull us through crisis after crisis after crisis when these are white people who've frankly never done anything close to their part in fighting for a real democracy. I mean, all of this is in our history. The country was founded, as historians now are willing to say, real historians are willing to say, as a slave republic. It was propertied men, propertied white men. Their property included other human beings. They got more votes if they owned other human beings. That was the original deal, and the District of Columbia was set up as the capital of what Andrew Jackson and others called a white man's country. So that pattern persisted, and then there was the Civil War, and during that war, black people freed themselves and came to the capital and created a real presence there, which lasted and lasted and has lasted all this time, even though Woodrow Wilson resegregated DC. So the narrative of American history is, it's hopeful because of the work of black people and their allies, right? And the people who learned from nonviolent resistance, moral leadership, all those things, the people who learned and applied those tactics and those principles in other arenas, women's rights, LGBTQ rights, environmental action. But that's the foundation. And now to see the potential of the extinction of what little democracy remains because people don't get this is just really, really painful. It's excruciating.
It absolutely is, especially when you consider that when democracy, if we've ever had one, is completely dismantled, everyone is harmed. I just don't get it why people don't seem to see this. They're behaving as if they can just turn and look the other way and somehow they won't be hurt by it.
Right. And Sharon, the other thing that happens is people slice and dice these issues as though they're separate issues. So we're having this gerrymander thing going on. It's the same thing. It's a different face of the same thing. It's about ensuring, let's call it this, ensuring white power
Yes.
into the future.
Mhm.
So I guess in California where you are, Schwarzenegger's like, no, stop, no gerrymandering ever.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
No, Schwarzenegger is leading an opposition to it. And I would say this: it's a dangerous game because the capacity of red states to do this and enhance their power is vastly greater
Yeah.
than the capacity of blue states to do it. In fact, even if Gavin Newsom gave it his all, he might not get it through in California. And meantime, the Democrats are back in Texas, and it looks like they're going to, I'm again, not to make any predictions, it looks like they're going to cave in some fashion.
Well, I don't know that they'll have any choice on the caving. As is said, places, they don't have the cards to resist, really, if they're in the state. But I must say, with Gavin Newsom, right, it's a dangerous game he's playing. But I really like that he's coming out forcefully and going right at Donald Trump in the ways that others kind of hedge their bets at times. But I wanted to go back to something that Sharon said about there's a lot of white progressives don't put much energy into racism or don't see its central role. And yet here you are. I mean, you grew up on a farm in Wisconsin in probably the whitest part of the United States with
Guaranteed.
labor movement, and then you were a pastor in New York City, and then you were head of the Progressive Christians Uniting out here. But so what drew you, why is racism and the plight of Black people so important to you?
I'm passionate about this because, how to put this, I was heavily influenced by Toni Morrison and James Baldwin, at a young age. I came to know Black people when I lived in DC in a serious way, and work with Black people. And I saw that that light, that witness, that vibrant commitment to being fully human, no matter what. And it's a compelling thing. It's a compelling thing. I don't really have words for it. But the conscience of the country and the world really comes out of the African American experience. I've always felt that strongly. It's kind of what brought me somehow to ministry. The person I was partnered with was African American. He was leading this in Detroit, Michigan. He was leading that kind of life, giving his all. And when he passed, I thought, well, I've got to try to walk in his steps in some fashion. And he was a committed Christian. I was, shall we say, I was still an exiled, embittered former Dutch Reformed person at that point. So, I walked back into it. I tried to walk back into the light, and I won't stop doing that. I mean, the deepest hope of my heart is that people would say, wait a minute, this is not working in allyship is not a one-off. It is the path. And in my article, I try to say something about the criminal justice movement, criminal justice reform movement, and how that's a kind of bellwether because, again, given the history and given the thoroughgoing racist nature of policing and jailing in the United States, right up through the death penalty, if we can't see how wrong that is, right, and change it once for all, if we can't get away from this idea that we will sacrifice Black lives, we will sacrifice Black lives, just to make a point, just to make the point that we are still in love with racial hierarchy. If we can't break that, then we have failed. And I do think that is the gauge, that is the bellwether.
Yeah, I agree. I agree, Peter. I've written several articles on this, articles that I believe fall under the category of the centrality of race. And my message is basically that until we face this head on, we're never going to have the kind of country, the kind of democracy that it says it is. It'll never happen. And it wasn't designed to happen because at the time that the framers wrote the Constitution, they had people, human beings, shackled and chained and doing work. And their intention was never to include these people. Rather than include them, they would recharacterize these people as property. But of course, I don't believe for 1 second that they didn't see that these were human beings.
No, they did. They clearly did. Again, it's a divided kind of consciousness. And of course, when people became free in whatever way, if they freed themselves, purchased their freedom, ultimately emancipated in the millions, they were still told very clearly, you don't belong here. It would be nice, as President Lincoln said to Black people in 1862, if you could remove yourselves. It'd be better for you. It'd be better for us. Think of what that spot might be. Maybe Africa, west of the Mississippi somewhere. And we revere Abraham Lincoln, but he was not alone among so-called enlightened white people in saying, yeah, we don't like slavery, but we don't like you hanging around. We've discussed this before in the context of who belongs. Back to this crime thing. I mean, it is remarkable to me that the statistics now, as of today, Trump has said that statistics are bullshit, and even though they're made up by the Justice Department, he says they're all fake. But it's not just Trump. It's 60-70% of people in the country and 50% of everybody, but higher obviously among white people and rising among some people of color. It's this idea that crime is a terrible immediate threat. How can that be? And you all are in the media world. it can only be because of the echo chamber. It can only be because of these fear messages that are constantly repeated, and the law enforcement unions put them out there, and all kinds of shameless, nefarious political operatives don't hesitate to say, "Oh yeah, yeah, you're going to get stabbed, you're going to get robbed, you'll never be secure," and they don't use the words necessarily anymore. It's Black people. It's Black people who are coming for you.
Yeah.
My grandmother in Indiana, my mother's mother, we would visit her in Fort Wayne from time to time. And Fort Wayne, Indiana is an industrial city, and there's a river that winds through it called the Maumee River. And I would walk along the levees there because river would flood sometimes. I'd walk around the levees, which weren't too far from her house. I was like 8 or 9 years old. And she would say to me, and her eyes would kind of pop. She said, "The boogeyman's going to get you if you stay out there." And it took me a while to figure out. She was talking about Black people, the boogeyman. Right? The boogeyman in America is Black people. And I think part of this is white people project their very worst attributes, the very worst that's in them, on Black people. Right? That's a habitual thing. It's so automatic that people don't, it never occurs to them that they'd be doing that, right? So, example, right? Black people must, Trump has said this, Black people must embody laziness in some fashion. Well, here's a man who hasn't done a stroke of work in his life.
Well,
And
no,
doesn't,
it's a little work.
doesn't pay the people who do the work.
Right.
No, but he does kick the ball out of the rough. And that's a pretty hard job.
In golf. This is
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess.
He doesn't actually play golf.
You're
That's soccer.
far more generous than me, Dick Price. I hope I'm not painting too bleak a picture, but I don't think I am. I just don't think I am. I think this is the I don't like the language of original sin, because if you want to get technical, the original sin was extermination of the Native Americans and
Yeah.
and theft of the land. But crime, the crime, the crime, to my way of thinking, the all-time violation of human rights, crime against humanity, the transport of 13 million people to the New World by European colonizers. A very small number came to this country, but as a result of that transport, at the time of the war between the states, 4 million people were in bondage, in the most brutal form of bondage.
So out here in Los Angeles, we're under siege in a way too. I mean, the Trump administration has declared war on Mexicans or on Latinos, but the truth is, it's just over on our side of town and in other Latino enclaves that are having gangs of thugs, unidentified thugs, going around beating up gardeners and delivery men and grabbing children out of school. We spend some time on the west side of LA, and the only danger there is you'll get run over by a Waymo. But they don't know about ICE invading the thing, and the media, the echo chamber, is winning the day. I mean, we all love our internet, but Trump has found, and his people have found, a way that you just repeat the lies often enough about how horrible immigrants are, how horrible Black people are, how much, and people who wouldn't know a Black person if they bumped into them and never saw an immigrant, buy it, and they're up in arms and they're scared, and I'm desperately worried that this is going to lead to some kind of violent interaction that Trump and his folks actually want, because they control the military and the police and the guns and the drones, and we're going to lose.
Well, I say something like that in my piece. I think I say something like Trump would like nothing better than a full-scale riot someplace, because that would allow him to say, see, even though it was provoked, right? I mean, it's a long history of provoked violence, sometimes using people who are provocateurs. There's no question that masked people who are armed and dangerous, are a horrible provocation, And there are, in fact, there is a slice in D.C. now of the left. It's the super militant left who are doing their own masking and stuff, and they're taunting these guys. And initially the director of the commander of the guard in D.C. said they're not armed. The arms are in an armory. Then I think it was yesterday. It's like actually they do have live ammunition. I mean, it's easy to see. That's not funny. It's easy to see something horrible erupting. Maybe not in D.C., but not. L.A. is a volatile, very volatile place, and some of the things they're doing are so atrocious that people are going to react. Yeah.
They're reacting to some extent.
Yeah, they are
It's a
reacting.
war on all fronts. I mean, and the thing about bad actors, the thing about the nefarious is their bag of tricks is boundless. But I think I said earlier, I do think Trump is trying to tee this one up for the midterms, right? And the fact that he's got governors of now 3 states adding to the guard in D.C. So we keep saying he doesn't have authority to do this, or he doesn't have authority to do that, and then he does it. He's like his buddy Putin in that respect, right? Backs on the ground. He's good at that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, Peter, I wish there were some easy solutions here, but there aren't. I think that the best that we can do as we are confronted with these ugly realities is try to understand the foundation that they rest on. Trump, many people say, and I agree with this, isn't the cause of the problem. He's a symptom of a problem that we've had for as long as I've lived. And we need to start getting to the roots. And then maybe we'll take care of Trump and whatever future Trumps come along.
But I would disagree with Sharon on one thing. I think there are things that we can do, and we're doing them. We happen to be doing it right now. We're promoting Peter's piece, which is laying out the truth about what's going on. Now, the MAGA crowd won't read it, won't understand it, and yet we need to do that. Now, I also agree we can't go on the street with weapons and fight thugs, but we need to go in the street and protest and let the world know that what the Trump administration and his minions are doing isn't what all people feel. I mean, we got to do something. We can't roll over because Trump won't stop. I mean, he won't stop until he controls every damn. I mean, he's taking over the Kennedy Foundation. He's nominating Gloria Gaynor to get a prize, and nobody remembers who she is. Well, Sharon does.
Yes, of course.
Well, I'm from the disco era, so I remember Gloria really, really well, and I'm all for her. She's the awardee. I'm all for the rest. I could care less. I don't even know. I vaguely know who George Strait is. I should. I'm culturally illiterate.
Yeah.
Well, Dick likes country music.
Yeah, but George Strait has been retired for 10 years. I mean,
well, you got to think about this. Who would accept an invitation now to be a Kennedy Center honoree?
Right.
There you go. I mean, I agree with you, Dick. I just today learned about a drive here in Rhode Island to let people do their court appearances virtually, since we know that the thugs, the ICE agents, are going to be at the courthouses. Nobody should be afraid to honor their court date because there's a penalty if you don't show up. So that seems to me something we can do, and other states can innovate and find ways to be helpful. I mean, I can't not think that ultimately, in the midst of the late wonderful Joanna Macy talked about collapse and how within the collapsing structures of a dying culture, and this is a dying empire, the turning toward a culture of peace, nonviolence, and solidarity can actually take place in small ways. If we don't let our own light go out, and certainly a lot of young people are there because they don't see any kind of future in this mess. They just don't see it.
Yeah, I want to go back to what Dick said, because he was responding to something that I said, and I don't
Yes.
want I don't want my sentiments to be misinterpreted to mean that I don't think we should do anything. I think we absolutely should continue to do all of the things we've been doing, but there's something that we still haven't done, and that is get to the roots of the problem. It's wonderful that Gavin Newsom is taking this position that he's taking, but I guarantee you that that alone will not change this country from being a racially hierarchical country where the vast majority of white people have just been okay with that.
Well, yeah, I agree with that. So if we do actually win the midterm somehow and get at least a Democratic leaning Congress, and then even win the next presidential election for Democrats, that won't make any difference unless we really pay attention to what's at the root cause here. I do agree with that.
Well, and Sharon, you're both pointing to intersectional organizing, to use an overused word, in a way that we haven't seen before. We get to critical mass when we find all these people who are with us we didn't know about, because they're working basically in sort of the next room. And here I come back to one of my favorite themes, and I know we're going long, but the philanthropists who support all this work do not, even to this day, in this urgent time, do not urge their grantees to work with others, because these are pet projects of a given funder. And that to me is disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Of course, the people who make these decisions, sit at these tables, are very well paid. It's no skin off their nose to keep the hobby stuff going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we have to have a whole podcast about that.
Right. And this is why I never get any funding, because I say things like that.
Right. No, neither do we. Neither do we, because the nonprofit industrial
Complex.
Complex,
complex,
yes.
yeah, the
Yep.
nonprofit industrial complex is a partner in this mess.
Well, then I'm gonna end in my preacher-like way with this hopeful note. This is a phrase a friend of mine uses all the time, and it stays in my heart. Love will carry us. Love will carry us. When we run out of fuel, love will carry us.
Thank you, Peter. And
Thanks
with
so
those
much.
words, I think it's time for us to say goodbye until we meet again next time. Everyone who appreciates these words, please like, share, subscribe. Independent media needs your support now more than ever. Thank you, Peter.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you for sticking around. If you like the LA Progressive content and the discussions we have here, please consider clicking the subscribe button below, and also give us a thumbs up. That helps to grow our audience by feeding the algorithm, which helps to get this content in front of more eyes. Thanks for stopping by. We really appreciate your support.